Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is my a few months later review of the DJI Avata 2. If you're in the market of buying a new drone and you're thinking about buying this one, well, you'll get some answers. Should you buy it or not? Let's go. A few months ago, I made a video comparison between this and the DJI FPV, the original FPV drone from DJI, which is a very different drone compared to this, because this is a cinehoop. It's meant to fly in tight spaces, very controlled and very slow, compared to the FPV, which is like a landscape cinematic drone. So if you're considering one or the other, then watch this video over here where you will get pretty much all the answers. But there are a few things that I missed in that video that I want to cover in this one. So first of all, the size and the shape. And this is the reason why I switched from the FPV to this, because this is so small that I can pack it up together with my camera, with my lenses, with the remote, with the goggles in one backpack. Whereas with the FPV drone, I had to have a separate backpack just for the drone, which ended up in me not taking it out quite a lot, or just bringing an action camera alongside instead of a big camera. So with this now, I can do a proper video and still have my drone with me. The second thing is, and that's the one I missed in the original video, it's the camera. Now this has a much better camera than pretty much any other FPV drone from DJI, and it's exactly the same as the DJI Osmo Action 4, which means that it shoots 10-bit and you can use D-Log-M, which in my measurements gives you an additional stop and a half of dynamic range. So you can really go crazy with the edits and you will preserve a lot of the highlights at the same time. It's not like a proper S-Log3 like I'm using on the Sony camera, but it is definitely gradable, so you can get some really interesting looking videos. But that's just one thing. Now the other thing is that it's a much bigger sensor, which means that also the resolution is going to be much clearer. Even though you're shooting 4K, it's going to be a better 4K resolution compared to, let's say, the DJI FPV original drone. But also, it is a really wide angle camera field of view, 155 degrees, which means that you will get much more dynamic shots, much more fast motion looking shots, even though you're not flying really fast. And it gives you that kind of traditional FPV style field of view video, which with the original DJI FPV you didn't really get. And seriously, that was like a cinematic FPV drone, so it was a bit more compressed. Now, one thing that the original FPV did not have is the ability to stabilize the video in post-production, let's say using gyro flow, because there was no sensor data recorded in the video in any camera mode. Here, however, because it's the same camera as the Osmo Action 4, well, if you shoot in the wide field of view, not the ultra-wide, but the wide, and turn off rock-steady stabilization altogether, well, then motion data will be baked into the video file and you can open it up in GyroFlow or even in Davinci Resolve and use the GyroFlow plugin, and you can stabilize the video in post. Now, seriously, GyroFlow is always going to do a better job at stabilizing, but honestly, with the new Rocksteady 3 point something or whatever iteration we're at, you don't actually need to stabilize it in post. Now, I remember the first video that I made with this and I watched it on my computer. It was like the stablest video I've ever seen, and I'm not a very stable flyer. I always fly manual and with the remote controller. I don't use the motion controller because that's very limiting. So if you want to go FPV, you have to go for sticks and manual. But as I said, I'm not a very smooth flyer, and you can see an example here from from a previous video, it's not really smooth, and that's the view from the goggles, and that's how I actually flew the drone. But then the actual recording looks buttery smooth, and this was not stabilized in post. It was all done within the drone, within the video file, so you get a stabilized video straight out of the box, and that is definitely a benefit of the Avata 2. Now, in terms of battery life, I would say every iteration of these drones is a little bit better. I mean, I can get around 15 minutes of manual flight time, and it's way more than any other classical homemade FPV drone, but it's not as long and durable as, let's say, like a Mavic Air or Mavic something, which lasts over 20 minutes. FPV takes up a lot of battery, but it is, good enough to just have one battery. So everything that I was recording today, I did with just half a charge of this battery. So you can get some pretty crazy shots with just one battery. Of course, you can always buy more, but yeah, it's good enough. Now, since this is a Cinewhoop and it's very controllable if it's not really windy, it is much more suitable for beginners. So if you've never tried FPV, then definitely go with this instead of the original DJI FPV, because that is just a monster and you will crash it very quickly and it just falls apart really fast. But this, since it's not flying as fast, well, you can bump it here and there, and I can even fly it through trees, like you can see in this example from another previous video. And I feel really safe because you feel like you have more control. So that is yet another benefit of the Avata 2 compared to the other FPV. To be completely honest, I've never tried the original Avata, and I don't actually recommend it, even though it might be cheaper these days, because, well, if you ever heard the original Avata, it's a squeaky, high-pitched, very loud drone that just annoys everybody. I mean, even this is really loud, but it's kind of durable. I mean, it annoys the hell out of me when I'm flying, and I know that it annoys every other person that is listening to it, but compared to the original Avata, it's much more bearable, so it's not going to, pop out your eardrums. Now, honestly, the only downside that I can mention about this drone is that it's not as fast as, let's say, the FPV. So if you want to go here mountainscaping, you're not going to get a big rush out of it unless you fly really close to the ground and close to the trees, which always make better videos that way. But it's just not a really mountainscape type drone, and if it's windy, you will feel it on this drone, and you can go one direction over 100 kilometers per hour, but then when you try to get back, you can easily run out of batteries because the drone is really going to suffer against the wind. So it's not meant to be used in windy situations, and that's pretty much the only downside that I can think of about the Avata 2. So this was my a few months later review of the Avata 2. If you're considering buying it, well, then definitely do. Spend a few 10-50 hours in a drone simulator like Liftoff, for instance, which isn't really expensive, and you will learn how to fly manually there. Just don't learn how to crash a lot, because once you switch to this and you go manual, well, it's the same as the video game, so if you crash in the game, you will crash in real life. Anyway, I'm really happy that I got it. I do recommend it, and since this is not a sponsored video, I'm just going to say, well, just buy it because it's amazing. So thanks for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope you got something out of it. Consider subscribing if you're new. Hit the like button for the algorithm, and if you want to stay on the channel, watch this video over here. Thanks, and I'll see you in this one. Bye bye.